Video number 6. So listen, let me switch it up a little bit. I want this one to be about healing, thriving, and growing. All right? Healing, thriving, and growing. So for the growth part of this, I want to use an example of what it takes to maintain a garden. For me, whenever I teach in any room, in any capacity, I find that it's easier when you have examples, and it's much easier when you can visually see what it is that the educator or the teacher, the coach is really, it's to the point where they say, I need you to pick up what I'm putting down, basically. So we're going to talk about the healing component, right? As we approach the month of May, there are going to be a lot of people who are begin to experience things that they haven't quite yet dealt with. They're going to be introduced to some things that maybe they've been suppressing, they've been pushing it down. These may be a series of feelings or emotions. I can say that from a standpoint of working a 9-to-5. Anyone who knows that I've had that platform, you guys already know how I feel about it. I'm not going to waste any energy tonight obliging or even kiki-kai about, period. When I got ready to enter into full-time entrepreneurship, I had to do some healing, y'all. And when I talk about healing, we're not just talking about making an epic leap from a full-time, quote-unquote, dependable. I don't say that it's dependable. You need something else, period. But given that moment in time, there are some things that I needed to heal from in order to enter into this entrepreneurial space, okay? We don't talk a lot about entrepreneurs and mental health, though it is something that's a little bit more popular now. I can tell you about 5 or 6 years ago, me bringing those words up, it was like fighting words when I used to ask entrepreneurs, how do you feel? Even now when I ask 9-to-5 CEOs or 9-to-5 workers who are looking to come into this space, the thing about it is, you are going to have to heal from some things before you enter into this entrepreneurial space, because that what you don't heal from, you're going to be exposed to it at a higher quantity and just a more potent level. Let me say it to you like that. Entrepreneurship for me, success, traveling the world, dealing with things. When I got to the highest of the height in my success, there's a higher probability for all the walls, all the things to come down. One of the reasons why I've been so successful in my transition while being an entrepreneur, I have faced and really healed as I was hurting from those things. So let me break it down to you. The best way I can explain it is using an example of a garden. When you go to grow a garden, right, which is what a lot of you guys may want to do coming out of a 9-to-5, going into full-time entrepreneurship, there are some steps that you are going to have to take. And these are the steps that a lot of people don't like to take. There's going to be an examining of yourself, no different than examining the soil that you're going to need to prepare that soil to put any seed in the ground. So if we use the example of you being the soil, you being the thing that needs to be examined, let's talk about some of the things that you need to examine yourself for before you enter into this entrepreneurial space. The number one thing you're going to have to examine is your heart. You're going to have to examine your heart. What is your why behind what you're wanting to do? Every single day, I have to push myself to get up and do God knows what, so that I can go after my dreams, so that I can do the very things that God has called me to do. I always have to lead from a prostrate position of my heart posture. What are the desires of my heart? That's no different than a garden. A garden is going to require you to examine, number one, the soil, right? What is the condition of the soil before you put the plant down? What is the condition of the soil before you put the plant down? Now, certain plants thrive and die in certain types of environments, certain types of soil, certain types of weather. Oh, this is good. I'm gonna have to come back and watch this. This is so good. God is always good. Certain plants can only be planted in certain seasons. Wait a minute. So for those who say they want to make an epic exit or a transition, build businesses and blah, 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 you're first going to have to examine your heart. What is the heart behind why you want to do this? Is your heart ready for things like rejection? Are you an integrous person? Are you a good leader? Are you a good orator? Even with the presentations, do you know how to put them together? Do you have a support system? Do you know anything about branding? All these things are necessary. And I know that people skip beyond those things. And let's not even get into your mental health and wellness. Some of you guys can't even handle constructive criticism on your 9-to-5 job, and you think you're going to be able to come into entrepreneurship. Your customers become your bosses. Your clients become your bosses. And if you have over 300 of those, they tell all the time. They give you feedback. What you did right, what you did wrong, what you need to work on. Too much water, not enough water. Too much energy, not enough energy, okay? So number one, examining your heart. Examining your why. For me, this has been a year where God has reminded me why I started this. Listen, the entire 2024 reminded me why I set out on this entrepreneurial journey to begin with. I've always led from a prostrate position of being a mother first. Not a wife, not a daughter, not a sister, none of those things. From being a mother and wanting more time for my children, wanting them to not have to experience some of the things that I had to go through, wanting them to know what it felt like to have a mom who was present, who was available, who was there. Hey, Trey, who listened, who cared, who loved. Not to gain anything from it. I just always wanted what was best for them. And in order for me to give that to them, it required a part of me that didn't yet exist. It was a part that I desired. But just like when you go and you plant a garden or you attempt to plant a garden, there are certain things that you need to root up. Go ahead and preach, somebody. Those are the parts that we're not yet willing to deal with. We're not willing to deal with our past. We're not willing to deal with the pains. We're not willing to deal with all those things that come with it, because when you enter into entrepreneurship, all those things are going to be challenged. All those things are going to be brought into question. And you have to know who you are. Hold on, y'all. You have to know who you are. Because if you don't, you're going to start planting things in soil that doesn't, what do they call, mishmash, that don't go together. That's not conducive. That's not positive. It's not going to serve you. You're just practicing. And that's not what you really want. What you really want is success. What you really want is the garden to grow. And the garden is you. Okay? So number one, you're going to have to do some evaluation and some examinations. And this is the part that a lot of people don't like doing. We don't like to evaluate where we are. We don't like to have these conversations about where we are mentally. We don't like to pull the wool off and say, I need to work on a couple more things before I launch out into this arena. And it rips me to shreds. We don't like to work on mindset. We don't like to work on money management. We don't like to work on building an actual skill set. You know how difficult it is to sell in a season where so many people have been bamboozled, tricked into things that they know isn't worth the value, but because they just want to go along to get along and be a part of the party. Do you know what skill set is required for you to say no and don't follow the crowd and say, I trust Jesus with this, even though it makes me look borderline psychotic? That takes encouragement. That takes courage. That takes power. That takes authority. That takes wisdom. That takes integrity. That takes management of self. That takes determination. That takes discipline. Come on, somebody. These last 5 lives, I'm coming. I'm going to bring it. The first 5 was real pretty. These last 5, I'm about to be on fire. You know why? Because it's what we need. This is the work. If I want to sell 1,000 books, this is the work. The work is the work. If you want to come up off that 9 to 5, if you want to transition, and especially if you're working 40 plus hours per week, This is the work. The work is getting off your 9 to 5 and loving yourself enough to till up that soil, to prepare a firm foundation, to put the proper seeds in the ground so that the correct plants. And then let's talk about the nurturing. Let's talk about the watering. Let's talk about the water that's required. Now, earlier this week, my daughter and I, we had a fish. And it was so interesting that the fish we won, hey, Marsha, we won the fish at the fair. It was a free fish, but we ended up paying about $100 to $200 to maintain the fish. The main thing they told me is that if the water the pH isn't where it needs to be, if there's not enough, I'm assuming water conditioner or softener, whatever it is in there. But aren't so many of us like that amazing school girl or kid who's happy that you've won this prize at the fair, and now you got this goldfish that you take with you, and it didn't come with any instructions. Entrepreneurship doesn't come with any instructions. That's why hiring a coach is so critical. I'm always floored when people tell me they quit their job, and I'm like, where's your coach? Do you even know what you're doing and how you're going to do it, and how are you going to live? How are you going to psychologically process all of these changes that you're going to go through? When I ran Avery University, we had 4 or 5 pillars, and I told them, spiritually, you better make sure that you prepare yourself. Financially, you better make sure you prepare yourself. I am the poster girl for what it looks like. I've been through almost every possible thing, and I used to get so frustrated with God and say, Lord, why me? Why didn't I get to be the person who came out and everything worked? And he says, because I'm going to be using you to go back and get them, to guide them, to strengthen them, to position them. Because ultimately, they have to come back to me. I'm the source. I'm the living water. I'm the manna in the bread. I'm the one who's going to give the increase. All I'm asking you to do is to sow. See, gardening requires work, just like running a business. It requires work. Healing requires work. Growing requires work. Thriving when all you want to do is lay down in the bed requires work. So this last part we're going to talk about is treating the soil. I would oftentimes coach years ago and say, some of you guys leave your 9 to 5, come into entrepreneurship, and you treat yourself worse than how you were treated at a job. See, with a job, they already have SOPs. With a job, you come in and it's brainless, it's thoughtless. Running your business is work. You design the SOPs. You design those things. You measure the KPIs. Not only do you design, most times you invest, you design, you create, you critique, you market, you sell, you do all that. So once that soil is properly treated, it is well aerated or whatever the term is called, that seed is now prepped to go into the ground. And so many of us fall because we feel that right as God is launching us out, we then become buried. But don't you know that it's in order for that seed to germinate, it has to be buried? Come on now. I know y'all heard those messages before with the ministers talk to you about how you got to be buried. How many of y'all want to be buried? Not many. Y'all just want to be elevated. You want the world to know your name, and you think that as the world knows your name, you won't get crushed in that process? You think that being buried isn't a part of it? You think that being watered to the point that you feel like you're going to drown? Eat the food. Go eat. You don't need that. Sit down, baby. Right here. Thank you. You don't think that being buried is a part of the process? You don't think that friends falling off ain't a part of the process? You don't think that people betraying you isn't a part of the process? See, this is the process. And a lot of us aren't ready for that. So let's talk this last thing, cleaning your tools. After you prep the soil, watered the soil, conditioned the soil, picked out the right plant, picked out the right seed, however you want to look at it, you're going to need compost. Compost. Compost typically is a dead thing. Sometimes it's banana peels and different things like that. So not only are you buried, but you're buried inside compost. It's dark. It's wet. Sometimes it's cold. And it requires a regular checkup. It requires a regular checkup. Gardening isn't a set it and forget it. No different than your business. I know that for me, I want to be successful full-time entrepreneurship. That means that I'm going to have to produce more value and more volume, which is ultimately going to give me more victory, because people are going to come and say, how was she able to do it? How was she able to record 10 videos in one night? I don't care about the how. All I care about is that I got it done. So I want that to be food for thought. Maintaining a garden is work. Working a 9 to 5 is work. Running your business full time, it's work. Is it worth the wait though? Is it worth the wait that's required to see the seed fully germinate, to break through the soil, to grow and see the leaves fall off so that you can enjoy the fruits of your labor? Is it worth it to you? I want you to answer me in the comments, and I'll see you at video number 6.